Right now, there are over 1,200 condos in DC available for sale. In the last 3 months, only 582 units have sold. Days on market have gone up from 23 to 41 also in that short time. I'm going to show you why it's not just rates. My name is Nick Africano. I'm a local real estate agent in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. I service all three localities and am familiar with how the market has been going, especially in this slower time this summer. So I'm going to be reviewing a lot of data to show you why selling in DC is harder than it seems with condos and why buyers have way more leverage than they used to. So as it stands, as of June 1 of 2026 to today of August 21st, or what is it, the 20th? 21st, yeah. We currently have 1,249 units available for sale in the DC market. That's DC proper. That's not including Virginia and Maryland. So in that small little area, we're talking a crazy amount of units. And there's more being built and more coming on the market each and every day. And in that time, from June 1 to today, we've only sold 582. And so that means we are seeing a lot more people selling and not many people buying. So there's a huge influx of inventory that's come up that we didn't see in previous years. So it's been tougher for sellers to offload their units. So to give you an idea, 0 to 3 months in terms of inventory and how buyers and seller market works, 0 to 3 months worth of inventory is a seller's market. That's a lot less inventory, more competition if buyers are out, and then 6 months is about a balance, and anything over 6 months is considered a seller's market. For condos alone, we're at 19 and a half months worth of inventory, which is a crazy amount of inventory in DC alone for condos. So for your condo to stand out, you would either have to have the most spectacular unit for super well priced and giving away things, because right now everything that's fairly priced is sitting, and it's not the unit, it's not the building, it's just how it is right now. I mean, there's so many different things that come into play with this, to include interest rates and time of year, the government administration. There's just so many things. So to give you an idea, in June the median price point was $492,500. In July it was $477,500, and in August it's been roughly about $560,000. So that doesn't mean that from 477 to the 560 number is appreciation. That just happens to be the median. So we've actually seen things come down in terms of price. I believe it's between 95 and 97% from original lists have come down, and that doesn't include closing costs or seller subsidies or anything like that covered by the seller, which is now data that has to be provided in the MLS. So there's just a lot of things that have been coming into play with this DC condo market. And again, like any city, saturation is a possibility, but there's just so many units compared to what we were seeing back then during COVID era, because things were selling, people were moving, interest rates were low. It's just now made it more difficult to sell. I mean, to give you an idea, I had 2 condo listings in DC, one in Shepherdstown, or up on the top of Northwest DC by the Walter Reed Hospital, and another one in Van Ness, in one of the most premier areas. Both sat for the one in Shepherdstown for 6 months, 7 months. It was new construction, but the building still hadn't sold some of their brand new units, and they kept lowering their price, so my clients went underwater. So they pulled it off the market. Another one in Van Ness, it was a studio. We were at 220, and we're in a premier part of DC, and we sat for 2 months before my client decided to pull the listing, because we were in the summertime. We were barely getting any traction. I mean, we even did fire sales of 220 to 199,000, and we got no bites on it. It's just been a tough condo market, and there's several other factors that are playing into this as well. So right now, interest rates are between 6.5 to 6.7 per Freddie Mac's weekly survey, and rates are not expected to go down below 6 anytime soon. We saw a small window below 6 in February of 2026, and that quickly went back up after we went to war with Iran. So we shot back up to 7%. And so condos also have a little bit of a higher interest rate buffer because it is not the most sought after unit, and with all the condo market changes and the condo board regulations and HOA reviews, it's only made it that much harder. So to give you an idea, back in 2020, 2021, and part of 2022, we were between 2 and 4%. And since then, we have jumped from 4% to almost 7%. So your monthly payments, may have gone from, $2,500 a month to $3,500 a month before even having the condo fee tacked on. And then in the DC area, especially older buildings and high rises, you might be looking at a $700, $800, $900 condo fee a month. So these are just things that have been creating issues, because if I can take $700, $800 and just apply it to my mortgage instead of a condo fee, I can get more house. I mean, it's for every $100,000 in mortgage, it's $500 in payment. So I mean, why spend $200,000 if I could go get like a single or a row home in a different part of DC or in Maryland or Virginia for $600,000-$700,000 instead of buying a $400,000 or $500,000 condo and then paying the condo fee that you also will never get back. The condo fee is not something that you get back at the sale. Unlike a mortgage payment, you're not going to see that money back. So it's just things that keep continually adding up that make it also harder and less desirable to buy a condo. And so when almost everything in DC is a condo, that's the most affordable option, because the row homes are going for $1 million plus depending on where you buy. And if you want to be in a good part of DC, that is just the unfortunate reality, because you could buy a row home for $400,000, but it may not be in the most desirable area. So there's things that play into that. So when the interest rate just keeps hitting that on top of the P&I, or the principal and interest, and then your HOA fee, it's just harder. I mean, no one wants to buy the condo fee on top of that. So yeah, interest rates aren't coming down, and the people who have a 2 to 3% interest rate on their condo, they're probably never going to sell. They'll probably just rent it, because you're going to get a great rental payment, because it's going to be well below the average rental. In DC, the average rent for a 1-bedroom unit is roughly $2,500. It may have gone up, and so if your payment's $2,200 and you're making $2,500 a month, why would you sell? Especially now. So people holding on to their low interest rates, and the people hopefully waiting, we don't know when we're going to see it. I mean, NAR and I think Redfin and Zillow foresee us going through 2027 with roughly the same interest rate. So we're in a whole new interest rate landscape right now. So I've got my computer just so I can read these sort of things to you guys, because another thing that's going to make DC condo sales even harder, and this is going to be for all areas, but especially DC, that's already got such a saturation. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac released their new coordinated guidance, and so condos now have a stricter HOA review from lenders to ensure that the buildings are within compliance and have their reserves, their maintenance done, and all these other things to ensure that the building is safe, because of that unfortunate event that happened in Florida with the condo building collapse. So now lenders have a very thorough process they have to go through in order to ensure that they can fund the loan for the condo. And if the building doesn't meet the criteria, they'll be what's called non-warrantable, which means they cannot receive conventional financing, which is the most common of the financing types between conventional, FHA, and VA. So you would have to get what's called a non-warrantable loan, which is just a stricter type of loan type. You have to have more money down, and the interest rate's not as great, and the timelines are longer. So there's just so many different things, and not every lender has those products. So it just makes it that much harder. So if you remove, say, 90% of the financing type for a building, you're now fighting between 10% of people, and so it's going to make it harder for people to sell. So to give you an idea, on March 18, 2026, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac released coordinated guidance. Fannie Mae's lender letter and matching Freddie Mac bulletin, it bundles 4 changes together, 2 of which matter enormously for DC. Limited review is gone, effective August 3, 2026, so it's already in full force. Before this, lenders had 2 paths for condo loan. Limited review, a fast, lightweight process, 24 to 48 hours used for established buildings when the buyer put down enough equity. It only checked basic things: insurance, occupancy, no major litigation, and skipped a deep dive into the HOA finances. A full review is a comprehensive line-by-line underwrite of the entire association's budget, reserves, insurance, and legal history. As of August 3 of 2026, every condo loan in a building over 10 units now requires full review, no exceptions. So that streamlined shortcut that used to let well-established buildings skip financial scrutiny is simply gone. This alone means longer closing timelines and more document requests on almost every single DC condo sale going forward, since most DC buildings clear that 10-unit threshold easily. And then also the reserve funding minimum rises from 10% to 15%. So your building has to have a 10% reserve fee of all of the units to ensure that if any emergencies happen or things need to be repaired, that they have the money for it. So a 5% jump could mean that you're looking at a higher condo fee or a special assessment that every unit has to pay. So, and if the neighbor doesn't pay it, then you might be on the hook as a building to pay for the units that aren't doing it. So under full review, lenders check whether the HOA's funding is reserve account adequately. Historically, at least 10% of the annual assessment income, unless a professional reserve study done within the last 36 months justifies a different number. That floor is jumping to 15%. And here's that part that makes it dangerous. There's also a new hard trigger. If a reserve study finds more than $10,000 per unit in unfunded critical repairs, the buildings become ineligible for GSE financing, period, regardless of the percentage. A 100-unit building with a $1.2 million deferred roof replacement and no reserve funding for it blows past the threshold by $2,000 a unit. Buildings don't become ineligible when something actually breaks. They become ineligible the moment a lender review uncovers the unfunded liability on paper. So even if the roof is fine, they don't have the money for it just in the case, you're screwed. So, that then triggers a special assessment, or the lender is just saying, hey, we're not going to fund this because it doesn't meet the criteria that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have established. So if the building fails review, it loses warrantable status. That's not a technicality. It means no conventional mortgage, no refinancing, no HELOC backed by Fannie or Freddie, which hurts a lot. And so the only option left are cash, portfolio loans, like I mentioned, or non-conforming financing, all more expensive and shrinking the pool people can actually afford it, because usually you need 20-ish% down or more. Some may be able to get away with 15, but I haven't heard of any. But again, on a $500,000 loan, you're talking $100,000. So at that point, you might as well just go buy something else. So it's just, there's just a lot of things that come into play with this. So these condo rules are really going to affect sellers and buyers, because if they do want to buy a condo in DC, what can you do? So taking all 3 of those things, the interest rates, the rising inventory, and the new condo review period that has been established, it's going to be really difficult for sellers to move their unit unless they either have a different price or are able to comply with what's going on, because right now the market's just going to be a challenge. And so ensuring that you can have a quick and hopefully profitable sale, you're going to want to make sure you take a look at everything that's going on, seeing what the market's doing, and ensure that your agent is watching and ensuring that, all right, all these things together are going to create the perfect storm. So we just want to either find a different time to sell, we're not saying time the market with interest rates, but see what that trend is looking like in the next 3 to 4 months, and then making sure that your building is staying on top of, the reserve studies and the HOA review period, because again, a lot of buildings have done a terrible job with upkeeping those sort of things. Because you don't want surprise projects coming up or any special assessments hitting you, because that's just another factor that will affect your sale. So what does this mean for buyers? Buyers, you guys have the most leverage you've seen in a long time, especially in the condo market. So if you are looking to buy a condo and these sort of things aren't scaring you off, with the limited buyer competition that there is in the high amount of inventory that we're seeing, closing costs are getting covered, massive price reductions, condo fees being covered by the seller for the next few months. You're getting all these sort of things that we weren't seeing just a few years ago. So if you're looking to either invest or just buy a unit, just understand, all right, these sort of things can happen down the road if I decide to sell. But know that, hey, I can get a great deal now, but just make sure that you plan for the future. And sellers, just know that look to entertain all offers. Doesn't mean you have to throw away, your unit or just give it away. But if something comes in lower than what you would like, don't just reject it because it might be the only offer you get. Try to find ways to get creative with offer structures if something comes in, or from what I've heard from a colleague, is offer reversed offers, where the seller signs a written contract and sends it to the people that viewed it. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try, because if you're willing to offer, say your listing's at $500,000, you offer $475 and some closing costs, if you can afford to do so. Put that in writing and send it over to the first or the few people that have shown the unit. It's at least an aggressive tactic to try to get your unit sold and separate from the noise, because even if you have the best unit against 1,200 other units, you may not even be noticed. So finding different ways to get sold. And lastly, understanding that just because the comps say one thing doesn't mean it's going to sell. To give you an idea, I had a listing in Navy Yard, and my clients had a one bedroom, and everything that the comp showed from the most recent sales was between 550 and 600. And knowing that Navy Yard had been seeing a decline in prices, I had told my clients, hey, look, let's list at 525. It's going to be lower than everything else, and understand that we still might not even get that number. It might be lower. So we got an offer at 500, and we then countered back at 509 with like a small seller credit or something like that. And we ended up selling, and that was the last one bedroom to sell within like 2-3 years. Now one bedrooms are selling below 400,000, just to give you an idea of how much saturation there is in DC. And again, certain neighborhoods are getting hit harder than other ones. So sellers also take into account, all right, depending where I'm at, like if I'm not in like let's say a premier location like Calorama or Georgetown or DuPont or Logan Circle, you may not see that sort of price insulation to other areas like Navy Yard or maybe the Wharf or other like Noma, in those parts of DCs where the inventory is up, the pricing is coming down because there's so much new construction and so many new units are coming up that it's going to affect what you can sell for. So just ensure that you have a game plan set for when you do go on market. If you've been thinking of selling your condo in DC, don't get caught off guard. Have a game plan in place. If you're wondering what your condo may be worth, or if your building is staying up with the current regulations, or if it's even warrantable at this point, comment down below. Let's get a conversation started, no obligations, so that we can talk about a game plan that will work. And even if it's not selling now, in the future. My name's Nick Africano. I'm a realtor in Alexandria, in DC, and in Maryland, and I'm here to help you.